Happy Friday! It's Fantastic Friday, and we're going to be looking more at fairy tales this Friday. We are going to be reading the fairy tale Anarosa. Before we do that, let's review our fairy tale posters from yesterday. Okay, so let's look at fairy tales. Fairy tales often begin and end with special words like once upon a time, lived happily ever after. This is a common element of a fairy tale. Usually when we read these two things, we know right away these are fairy tales. Oops. The stories often have characters who are royalty or a palace as part of the setting. That's a characteristic of a fairy tale. There's usually some kind of magic that happens in a fairy tale. Events, characters, or things often appear in 3s or 7s. So I guess just like yesterday when we read Cinderella, Cinderella was one of 3 sisters. She had Gert and Roz were her other sisters. There was 3 sisters. Fairy tales are stories with good and evil characters. The good characters usually win. Just like Cinderella yesterday in our story, Cindy. Okay, so we're going to read our story, Cinderella. No, not Cinderella, sorry, Anarosa. Anarosa is another fairy tale. And while we're reading, I want you to think about the story Anarosa, and then I want you to think about elements of a fairy tale, parts of a fairy tale, and see if you can pick out these elements. And I'm going to ask you some questions about the elements of this fairy tale. So let's read Anarosa. Once upon a time, oh, right there, once upon a time. That is a key element of a fairy tale when they begin with once upon a time. Anarosa lived in Tia-Lola and her cousins. Anarosa lived with Tia-Lola and her cousins Esmeralda and Rima. So we know from Spanish, when we learn about the names of people in Spanish, that a tia is an aunt. Tia-Lola made Anarosa scrub and sweep all day. Wow, this is just already reminding me a little bit of Cinderella. So let me see if I can do a check for us as a connection, because Anarosa and Cinderella are alike because both of them have to scrub and clean all day. So I was trying to do a check. I don't know if I'll be able to. There's my check. Anarosa worked hard and did not complain. Esmeralda and Rima were going to the grand fiesta. We know that a fiesta is the word for party in Spanish. And grand just means like big, great, wonderful. Anarosa watched. She wanted to go too, but Tia-Lola told her she must stay home and work. This is reminding me so much of Cinderella right now, because Cinderella wanted to go to the party too, but her sisters went without her. So, with what phrase does the story begin? It begins with once upon a time. That's a huge element of a fairy tale. And this tells us that it's going to be a fairy tale. So also I want you to think about right now, what is Anarosa's problem? What's her problem? What is her problem? And it seems like we're naturally connecting this text, Anarosa, to Cinderella. So we're probably thinking that somehow or another she's going to get to that fiesta. Let's see what happens on the next page. Anarosa swept the floors quickly and made them sparkle. She grabbed a bow for her hair. She found a beautiful dress. Then she hurried off to the fiesta. So what does Anarosa do about her problem? It looks like she just takes matters into her own hands. She just goes to the party. Esmeralda and Rima are going to the grand fiesta. Anarosa wanted to go too, but she had to stay home and work. When I read a fairy tale, I can think about how my experience are like those of the characters in the story. I'm like Anarosa because sometimes when I have to work, I would much rather be doing something else. And I know you can feel that way too. Sometimes when you have to do your homework, you'd so much rather be outside playing. When I read Anarosa, I wonder if Anarosa was happy living with her aunt and her cousins. I see a picture of Anarosa and she looks sad. I will read on to find out if that is correct. So on this page, she doesn't exactly look happy. So let's see if she actually is happy. Let's keep reading. We're on this page. Anarosa ran right into the prince. He thought she was charming. They danced all night. Anarosa became Princess Anarosa, and they lived happily ever after. With what phrase does the story end? What does it end with? It ends with where it says, and they lived happily ever after. That is a huge element of a fairy tale. Living happily ever after, or ending that way, is a huge element of a fairy tale. What does this mean for Anarosa and the prince? Well, they're going to be together and have a happy life. How are Anarosa and Cinderella alike? How are they different? You're going to be working on that part on your own. I like this question though. If Cinderella and Anarosa met, what do you think they would say to each other? Write about it. You don't have to write about it, but that's a cool kind of question. What do you think these two girls would say to each other? So now you're going to work on this part independently. You're going to be responsible for completing a Venn diagram about the two characters. So on one side, your Venn diagram is going to have Cindy, because in our story that we read yesterday, Cindy was Cinderella. On the other side of your Venn diagram, you're going to have Anarosa. And I'm going to be looking for you to compare these two characters. So I'm going to be looking for about 3 things that are unique for Cindy, 3 things that are unique for Anarosa, and 3 things or 3 words that describe how they're alike. So, and you may have to use what you know about inferences and characters and kind of draw an inference about these characters. What do you think they're like from the clues in the text and from what you know about people? Okay, so you may have to do that in order to complete the Venn diagram. Thanks for joining. I look forward to seeing your completed Venn diagrams, and I enjoyed learning about fairy tales with you this week. I'll see you soon.